is actually,
Sorry, I'm gonna end the recording. Or just,
it's
shut it
that's
flow.
okay.
Great.
Part of being strategic is actually being willing to let go of doing some things and being willing to constrain and do less things, but do them better. So the essence of strategy is choosing what not to do.
Exactly. And that is, we actually, Taryn and I, when we decided to do this webinar, how to build a business that works, one of the things that was really important to us, we talked at Mastermind, which we are both life coach school certified coaches. And we saw again that people were doing lots of different things. And we both have been in the business space for years now. We've worked and mentored with a bunch of people. And so we want to make sure that tonight you are learning how to gain clarity around where your business is at. We want to make sure that you understand your direction within your business right now. There are lots of different things that you could be doing to make sure that your business grows. You probably have heard of thousands of things. There is so much that you can do to make your business work. And we want to teach you the direction to go within your business to make it work even faster and more effectively work. And then we also want to talk to you about the actions that you need to be taking. A lot of our mentorship within our certification is heavily mindset based, which is awesome and wonderful. And we want to add a little bit more of the action focus about what kind of steps you can take literally after this evening. We want you guys to get into action and start helping more people. The reason we all started these businesses, pretty sure that everyone on here is an entrepreneur, and most of us are service-based entrepreneurs. Whether you are a coach, whether you are a personal stylist, there are lots of different businesses that are on our call this evening, and we are all here to serve other people. So we want to get you into action and helping more people this evening.
So, what we kind of want to do to start with is take you through what is causing the problem, like what we have seen both with our own clients and mainly the online space when it comes to business building, the things that people are doing wrong in the space and misconceptions that they have about how to actually build a business that is non-traditional. We're going to take you through the solutions that we each have for the different spaces of business that people might be in. And we've tried to keep it simple because let me tell you, we could find so many things for you guys to use. So constraining and actually just getting it down to the simplest and the most useful right now was a challenge. And then we're going to tell you a little bit about the two different programs that Megan and I run, and also give you time for some questions and answers, and hopefully be able to walk you through some things if you can see how some of what we talk about relates to your business. If you can then like bring that to us and we kind of show you how it fits.
Exactly. And just a note about the chat. I'm going to be running the chat and things like that. So if you have questions as we are presenting, feel free to put them into the chat, or you can write them down on a piece of paper and we'll address them at the end. So instead of like pausing and answering your questions, if you put something in the chat and I don't see it right away, it's just because we want to focus on getting all this awesome information out and then getting to that Q&A. Ooh, going backwards here. So just again, a little introduction about who we are and who we help and why we decided to do this. I am Megan Wing, and the reason why I founded my business, which is called Six Figure Systems, is I realized that there are things that you can do in your business to create more consistency. And I wanted to help people who wanted to scale to six figures and multiple six figures, who wanted to create a very simple process for their business to go through. So it didn't feel overwhelming. It didn't feel like it was stressful, and allowed people to create a little bit of that work-life balance as they were scaling.
And I'm Taryn West, as so many of you here know. And my business is called Change One Woman because the reason that I do this work is because I want to see more and more women in the world being empowered to have freedom of their finances and also their time. Because I've seen in the various places in the world that I've been working or being educated, the impact that happens in a culture when women are empowered in this way. And while I work with business owners of very differing sized businesses, my passion is the first time female entrepreneur, often who's just come out of your normal 9 to 5 workspace or has not ever actually been in the business environment. Because those are the people that I really want to get off on a good footing to build profitable, mission-driven businesses.
Exactly. We're pretty,
Okay.
as you can tell. So today we're going to start with the problem and then we're going to get how to solve it. So why your business might not be working or working as effectively as you want your business to work. So here were the 3 main struggles that we see: people who are just finishing educational programs, people who are going full-time in their businesses, people who are trying to go full-time in their business. One of the things that we've seen is that there's a lot of confusion. If you look up how to build a business on Google, what you'll see is that there is a ton of information. And what happens is when we experience a lot of information, we get stuck in what's like very classified as analysis paralysis. So that's where you're going to be seeing a lot of people seeing all these different ways to build a business, whether that's through an email list, building a funnel, creating a really jazzy website. And what happens is with the plethora of ideas and things that you have out there, you don't really know which direction to go in. So then, of course, as you're trying to build your business, you're lacking that clarity and confidence to move forward. And that is definitely going to be a struggle at any stage of your business. The next thing that we see is a little bit of overwhelm. We see, again, like we were talking about the millions of things that you're doing. You might see something about organic marketing, which just means that you aren't getting paid, you're not paying for marketing. And you might see something for paid marketing within ads. They're 2 conflicting things. There are so many examples about the other things that you can do to build your business, and a lot of times they don't align with each other. So when you're trying to build your business, it can feel really overwhelming if you're hearing 2 absolutely conflicting things. And then the last piece is a piece that feels really important to both of us, is that level of frustration that we see with people who go through and they get a certification or a training. And I was just talking to one of my clients today who went through and got a wonderful certification. And what happened is there was this expectation that the certification was going to teach her not only how to be, for her, she's a dietitian. So she thought that it was going to teach her how to be a dietitian and how to be an entrepreneur. Unfortunately, most of these trainings and certifications aren't designed to teach you how to be an entrepreneur. In order to really grow and build a business that works, you need to know a lot about how to be an entrepreneur, how to learn the pieces of entrepreneurship. And for Taryn, I know that she had a business background with a slighter business background within her nonprofit sphere. But for me, I actually started out, and when I got certified as a life coach, I was an elementary school teacher before that. So I had no business background whatsoever, and I had to learn a lot of that from scratch. So those are some really important things that we want to be showing you, that even if you got certified, it doesn't mean that you aren't great at what you got certified in. It's just that it wasn't teaching you how to be an entrepreneur, which is another key piece of it.
So we've been talking a lot about these aspects of business building, and I love that Megan brought up my not-for-profit background, because what I'm seeing in the small business space is very much like what I saw in developing not-for-profits. Because when you start a not-for-profit, you tend to have a bunch of very passionate people who are really dedicated to a mission, but they're mostly volunteers, and most of them don't have backgrounds, they don't have the appropriate skills. So you end up with organizations kind of being built from the ground up with everyone just guessing and making it up as they go, but they're super dedicated, so they somehow get through. And that's kind of what we're seeing in the business space as well. Because what's happening is people are trying to go from zero to having like a fully fledged business, but they're actually still in that very excited, passionate phase where they don't have the business skills. And when we see in the online space people going, well, you just go from 0 to 100K, and any of my coaches on the call now will know exactly what I mean. This like benchmark of you just somehow get out of the gates and off you go, and suddenly you'll be at 100K, which is the equivalent of trying to get up off your sofa after watching Netflix for the last 6 months and doing nothing and trying to run a marathon. There has to be a process in between that we go through, because you literally do not go from couch to marathon. And Megan, when Megan and I were talking about this, we were likening it to that app, that like 0 to 5K app. And that's where a lot of the problems in business get started, because people are trying to jump to the marathon straight away. But there's a fundamental part of business building that is the 0 to 5K, where you've got to go through the process of first building up enough strength just to get to that first piece. Just to get to the 5K, there's a whole process that goes into it. And like when you're training for a marathon, you get up, you start walking every day, and then you start running every day, and then you run a couple of 5Ks, and then you run your first 10K. And it's this process that you go through of getting better and better at what you do until you reach that ability to run the marathon. Your business is exactly the same as that.
And that's within that self-sustaining framework. When we're talking about why it doesn't work, is one of the things that we see people do is I want you to continue with that marathon analogy a little bit. And I want you to think about you seeing someone else run a marathon. And you're like, that would be awesome. I would love to do that. So a lot of times you're like, maybe it's like, I've seen them post pictures of running, so I guess I should be running. And so that's the same thing that we see with a lot of these service-based entrepreneurs in the online space. What happens is you take what you see someone else do, and that's what you do, which is helpful. But if we're thinking about how to scale and grow your business faster, if we want you guys to help more people, what happens is if you don't have that strategy in place, if you're missing these random actions, what's going to happen is you're going to create inconsistent results. So instead of creating something that is sustainable, something that is profitable, you find that like you go from like an 8K month to a 2K month to a 0K month, which that's fine, especially when you're first getting started. But our goal is that you guys are serving and helping more people. We want to create more of that sustainability so that you can continue and serve more people as you go. The other thing is, if you are going and doing things that are way ahead of time, like I've talked with a lot of people, and if you have one, that's awesome. But like going and starting podcasts and things like that, what happens is you might be skipping steps. You might be missing what this podcast could be about. The reason I speak to this, if anybody wants to look up Elevate Your End Game, I started a podcast when I first started my business, and me and my dear friend Cam, we decided to just start this podcast, and it was called Elevate Your End Game. And it was about general coaching. And we really felt like the topics in there were great and they were really helping people. But of course, because we weren't starting it with a strong foundation, understanding our mission behind that podcast, which is something that Taryn really focuses on as well, is we didn't really have a successful podcast because of it. And of course, we weren't getting clients from it. So that's something that we want to make sure that you guys are continuing as well. Also, when we're thinking about creating relevant processes, one of the things that we see a lot of people do when they're thinking about growing their business is they are doing things that they're seeing 7 and 8 figure business owners doing that don't pertain to the 0 to 6 figure mark. Now, of course, that's what you're doing. If you're seeing somebody that is modeling something that you desire, maybe $1 million business, of course you're thinking, oh, I should do exactly what they do right now in order to build my business. But what's happening is when you're seeing the things at the 7-figure level, those aren't relevant to your 0 to 6, multiple 6-figure level. So you need to focus on the processes that work for you. The other thing is, we see people missing specific tools and skills. I'm sure you guys might have gotten ads where it's like, get 100 followers, do all of this, like on different forms of social media and things like that. And when, let's say you do get 2,000 new followers, but if you don't have the skill of marketing, if you don't have the skill of selling to those people, those are lovely followers. It's a beautiful vanity metric. And you're not helping anybody because they're actually coming to you and they're not actually working with you. And we want to avoid that stage as quickly as possible when we're trying to build businesses that serve and help people. The other thing is you're using the wrong business model for your current stage. So if you're thinking about seeing other people that are using different aspects of their business, and maybe you don't realize that, like, when you have a service-based business, it's very different than a product-based business. It's very different than a service-based business at a 7-figure level. What you're going to see is it's just the wrong model for where you're at the certain time. And that's why not necessarily is your business not working, but it's not working efficiently. It's not working fast enough. So some of the examples that we gave here were like talking about this idea of massive action. And if you are on this call, clearly you have a business, you're an ambitious person, you're very driven. If you are thinking or have a business, it isn't something that most people do in their lifetime, which is something we want to change. But it's like, if you think that in order to get ahead, you just have to keep doing things, which has worked for you probably in every other career that you've ever had in your lifetime. However, when you are the CEO of a business, even at the solopreneur level, which all of us are at, what happens is we find that there is this course jumping effect where you're going from course to course, you're trying to get training after training without necessarily having the tools to apply those things. You might be doing things like building funnels, which is lovely, not necessarily for this stage in your business. And you also might have this gorgeous website that you might even have someone pay somebody to make, which again, we've all been, the reason why we know these examples.
We've been here.
We've been here. We did the things. We want to stop you from doing things and making mistakes that we made, and running ads, changing niches. Oh my goodness, that is something that like a lot of people are figuring out, and they think that they either have to niche or are getting really stuck on that piece of things. Again, like I said, podcasting, starting groups, or starting a course. I also, when I was in the first year of my business, did March Mindset Madness. And it was just kind of like who knows what that is? But I was like, it's a group, it's a course, it's a thing I'm going to sell. I know because I did it. I've been here. I've done all the things. Please learn before you do all these things, and don't do these things before your business is ready for it. And Taryn, I know this is a slide that we took a little bit of time on. Is there anything you want to add to this, or are you feeling?
No, I think you've explained everything in quite some depth.
So,
okay. So this is where I think the most interesting transitions really happen for business owners. Because not only do we go from either not being stay-at-home parents, some of us, or being an employee, to being an entrepreneur, we also go from being one person, one role, to suddenly doing everything. And we don't often realize that's what we're doing. So I wanted to share an experience I had at the very beginning of COVID when I was still the executive director of a not-for-profit. And unfortunately, COVID hit us very hard and very fast because it was an arts-based organization. All funding was basically immediately cut because it was non-essential. And we had to make the very difficult decision of letting all of our staff go. So for almost a full year, myself and the accountant ran that whole organization. I was the executive director. What I should have been doing was meeting with people and getting money in terms of like grants and things like that. But what I was actually doing was cleaning the bathrooms, creating art exhibitions. I was doing sales on the floor and selling artworks. I was doing the website myself. I was sending out the email newsletters myself. Every single piece of that organization, with the exception of the actual accounting, I had to learn how to do very, very quickly. And until we were able to get some volunteers to come in, because initially no one could come in at all, everyone was masked up and everything was closed. But I was running the show. And that was the moment where I realized why my own business hadn't taken off in the way that it has now. It's because I hadn't realized that there was a gap between starting a business and actually running a business, because there are so many different skills that we take for granted when we're an employee because somebody else is doing them. It's like we have our little piece of the puzzle, and that's all we have to do, and then everything will be fine. But the moment you start to run your own business, suddenly you're the marketing person, you're the product development person, you're the financial person, you're the customer delivery and customer service and customer complaints department. Every aspect of the business needs your touch on it. And what I often see happening, especially in the early stages of business, is people underestimate the skill sets that they need to learn. So they'll jump into it and they'll have this whole like, oh, I should just know what to do. I should be able to do this. And then they beat themselves up terribly when they can't, but they don't yet have the skills in place because they've never had to learn them. And that leads to this very weird situation where people think that they can do everything without any kind of training or experience, and often doing their best trying to do it. But they're cobbling together as many pieces of what they think the business needs as possible without understanding that they first have to break it down into those different pieces and stack the skills together one by learning them. So much like the not-for-profit model, we start with this passion, this idea of I have this amazing thing that I want to do, and now suddenly I've got to figure out how to do it. So we start looking around. And like Megan said before, we go online and we look at someone who's doing what we think we need to be doing. But usually their business is 3 or 4 years ahead of us, if not more. And so we start comparing and we're like, okay, that person's got a podcast and they're running ads and they're doing funnels and they've got a billboard somewhere and they're doing all these things. I need to be doing that, which gets so confusing and so overwhelming and doesn't actually get you results because it's not appropriate action for where you are. If you're just starting out, your job is to break what needs to be done into the different like departments that you're going to be running and start to learn the different skills that you need and stack them together until your business starts to click together and get you consistent results.
So beautifully said.
No, I thank you.
Well, and that's the piece that we see missing is
Mhm.
people not stacking those skills in order to scale their businesses, grow and scale them. So we want to talk to you about how to work smarter, not harder, as you build your business. Like Taryn and I have said, we have done all of the things and we have really learned what not to do to build a business that works. Hence why we are having this webinar this evening. So we wanted to talk tonight about the different stages. That is the first step of figuring out where your business is at. Now, because Taryn primarily works with the foundational and starting businesses, I would love for if you want to go through that category, and then I can get into the growing and scaling stage because that's who I work with.
Absolutely. So the beginning stage it doesn't have a time frame. And we were talking about this the other day because people like to say, oh, you know, business is between like 1 and 3 years. It's irrelevant. It really is. What you need to be looking at to identify what stage of business you're in is what is actually happening. So the very first thing that I always see when businesses don't have a solid foundation is that they don't know what to do, like day to day. If I come to someone and I say, okay, what is on your agenda for the things you're doing in your business this week? And they can't give me an immediate answer, I know they don't have a foundation. They don't have clarity around what it is they're doing, why, and what that looks like. The second piece that I see a lot, and this is mostly in consulting or service-based businesses like coaching, for example, but I've seen it in product-based businesses as well, is struggling. Let's try that in English. Struggling to explain what it is you actually sell. So not being able to talk about your niche without going, well, it's kind of like this and it's sort of like this and I do this kind of thing, but not really, because there's any kind of confusion about your niche or what you offer people, I know you don't have a clear foundation. And what often happens is that people won't have that foundation and then they start to panic and think, okay, the foundation is wrong or the niche is wrong, so I'm just going to change it to something else and that'll fix the problem. So they change the niche, they flip-flop to something else. But then they do exactly the same thing and don't have the foundation in place, so the pattern just repeats itself. The other way you can tell that you don't have a strong foundation is not really knowing what to say. So, you know how you sometimes look at your social media and you're like, I don't even know what to post. Or you're sending out an email, I'm like, I don't know what to say to these people. What am I supposed to say? I don't know how to do this. You don't have a clear foundation. The same is true of getting people to see your content. If you don't have the foundation, you're going to struggle to get your content in the right places, resonating with the people that you actually want to speak to, which means that you're going to struggle to get don't know what's going on. You're going to struggle to get consultations because if people are not seeing your message or resonating with your message because you don't know how to talk to them, because you don't understand your niche and your offer, you're not going to get clients, which is the big, big thing. It doesn't matter if your business is a year old or 10 years old. If you are not getting consistent clients, you do not have a solid foundation. The other thing that I see a lot, and this is how people kind of try and pivot to taking action because they're not sure what else to do, is they get very busy on the fluff. So if you're spending a lot of time obsessing over the specific shade of green that you want on your branding, you do not have a strong foundation. If you're changing your fonts every 3 weeks, if you're trying to rearrange your office so that it looks on point, you do not have a consistent foundation. And the same is true with your goals. If you don't actually know what your business goals are, and I'm not talking financial goals here because personally I don't find those that useful, but if you can't articulate to me what is the goal I have for my business this month, you do not have a solid foundation. You are missing the basic structures that your whole business needs to rest on. And I get very passionate about this, as you can tell. You know, my brain's going so fast that my mouth can't keep up. But this is where people get so stuck and so frustrated because they think that if they just get out there and start telling people what they do, that the business will somehow magically put itself together. It doesn't work that way. It truly requires a solid foundation to deal with all of these things that I've just highlighted. And that is the only thing that deals with those things. You've got to have that foundation in place. So if any of what I've just said is resonating with you, you may want to start looking at the foundational pieces, which we'll talk about in a moment. But this is the thing. Without this foundational piece, you can't do the things that Megan is going to talk about because you cannot scale something that isn't working.
Exactly. And that is one of the biggest pieces is we see people that leave things like certifications and they have these wonderful ideas and they're so passionate and they don't have these foundational skills. So that's exactly what Taryn is telling you. It's like, these are the pieces, these 9 pieces are the things that you want to really get in place, really hone when you're at that first stage of your business. You are really just getting started and or not seeing that consistency that we talked about previously. Now, when you're in the growing and scaling stage of your business, this is where I kind of, one of the things that I like to focus on is when you're thinking about growing and scaling that business of yours, you want to be really clear on what you sell. You want to, instead of just, and then, so you've got the clarity on your niche potentially, you've got clarity around your offer, and then we need to add the next level of clarity. So for instance, when I had got clarity at that first foundational level, and I decided that I was going to do careers at the beginning of my business. And then from there, I needed to articulate what piece of career coaching was I doing. And so that's where I came up with other foundational pieces of my offer. Like I was going to talk about burnout and confidence and time management. And those were the other underlying pieces within my offer that I wanted to create that helped me to grow and scale to my first 6 figures. The other thing is that if you have a foundation, if you're like, okay, I posted, I know how to post, I've done this a couple of times, and you're like, okay, I've got that down, but I see other coaches or I see other businesses that are doing a more elevated version of what I'm doing. I'm seeing them posting more consistently. I'm seeing them focusing on really building out potentially like an email list or things like that. That's what you want to be focusing on as a growing and scaling business. If you already have the foundation, then you need to scale that foundation. The other thing is, if you are thinking about the goals that Taryn was talking about at the end, It's like a lot of the people that I see at this stage of their business is they are committed to their goals, but they don't have a simple strategy. A lot of times at the beginning, you're testing out a lot of different pieces of the strategy. So you've got a lot of different pieces, but you need something that's more simplistic in order to scale. Especially if you're thinking about bringing on more clients and things like that, you're actually going to have less time to work on the back end of your business than you do at the foundation pieces. So you need to be really efficient at the strategy that you are using to scale. And you need to be doing that in a flow that works like a well-oiled machine. Like you want to be pumping out content, you want to be closing your sales calls, and you want it to work really, really efficiently. The next piece is at the beginning, you are getting people coming in for consults, and you might kind of hear about how to do a consult call. You kind of have some overarching idea of how to do that call. But when you're at the growing and scaling stage of your business, you need a consistent sales strategy that works. Like I was saying before, is if you are at a growing stage of your business, this is where you probably know a simple way to how to do a consult, but you want to be closing consults with the same process every single time so that you're making sure it's working really quickly and effectively so that you can go ahead and create a way that you can scale up your conversion rate. The other piece is that, especially if you're at the growing and scaling phase, this is where the difference between a growing and scaling business is at the scaling stage, you might be putting in places. This is actually the time when you have things like groups. So like I have a group right now, I have a mastermind that I run and things like that. I actually had to figure out a way to convert my sales process into something larger, like a webinar, instead of just doing one-on-one consults, in order for me to help more people at this stage of my business. The other thing is when you're thinking about the growing and scaling stage of your business, there are really specific metrics that you want to be looking at. Not talking about vanity metrics, like how many likes you have or how many followers you have. Many people who are my clients have triple the followers that I have or double the people on their email list, but I know how to close people. And that's what was missing from their growing to the scaling stage. And that's the kind of things that you need to be having in place within that stage. The next thing that you want to do is within that data, you want to really figure out what works for your business. Of the things that we are testing, if you think about your business almost like a science experiment, this is where we are scaling the variables. So you know the things that work. You have a couple consults, you've got a couple clients, you have those things under your belt. Now we need to really figure out what works for you and scale it and do more of those things so you can bring in more clients and help more people. The other thing is, again, with building that automations, you want to make sure that you're saving time. So you're maybe going from having a 30-hour work week to having like 10 hours to get all of the work that you have for your business done, because you've got way more clients and you need to scale all of that stuff down. That's when you need to make things automated. You need to make them fast, and you make them strategically. The other piece is you want to have protocols for those higher volumes. So if when you're creating things like groups, especially in that scaling level, when you're thinking about that kind of a situation for your business, what you want to do is you need to have a way that if you're delivering maybe to clients at a one-to-one level, you need a way that you are actually helping people at the group level. It's a very different skill set to help people at one-to-one to group. So you need to scale and have protocols for the larger volume of people to make sure everyone's still getting the same quality of results, even though you're moving to group. And then other things with the growing and scaling stage, this is where you want to build other processes. So maybe this is where we start adding in a couple more things to really bolster your business as you're trying to scale your business. So maybe you, at the beginning stage, an email list could be something that you could have, but it's not really necessary when you first start your business. However, at a growing and scaling stage, that might be another process that you want to add in that's done at a really strategic level. So it's like, and it's done in a monthly, quarterly basis. So you're actually projecting and seeing your year all ahead of time, and then you can go and do things really strategically. So that's the first piece. If you want to put in the chat whether you're at the starting or scaling stage in your business. That would be really fun for Taryn and I to see, just to see
Well,
what
there's already been some conversation.
I think I've seen a couple of, yes, the starting versus scaling. I'm like, those are the two pieces. And I want you to think about like where you lie. Taryn, you want to explain this lovely graphic?
Yeah, so we were chatting about the differences between starting and scaling, and this is what it boils down to. Starting is like when you are building one car by hand, you're putting it together piece by piece. Every one that you do is individual. So it's like when you get clients or when you make sales, it feels like everyone is a little bit different and you've kind of got to like do it on the fly, a little bit of making it up as you go, but you're building one car at a time. And then when your business is ready to scale, you've got the process of building that one car down, and now you're going to accelerate it by building a production line. And we were thinking about, the way the automotive industry changed when Henry Ford introduced that automation. What's it called, Megan? Remind me. What did they
The
call it?
assembly line, Ford's
Assembly line. That's it. The difference between starting and scaling is exactly that. It's one at a time versus an assembly line. When your business is ready to scale, you start to do things with a much more automated process, which makes it go faster and more consistently and more like the same. So instead of like figuring out clients one by one, you have a process of getting clients that you just repeat over and over and over. And instead of having like one way that you connect with people, you have processes that you repeat over and over and over. So being able to understand, are you building one product, one car, or are you at the assembly line phase, is a really easy way to kind of identify where you are. Although I'm seeing lots of people say they're in the starting space. Oh, we have some scaling.
some scaling, we got some starting, we got in Monette, I hope that's how you pronounce her name. Thank you, and we'll send you the replay for sure. And within each stage of your business, we want you to help you figure out what is missing. So when you're thinking about, we wanted to make this really simple for you guys, nothing too crazy, but we wanted to help you that tonight on October 23rd, I was like, that is the day today. On this day, you will leave here with some sort of direction. And so in order for you to have that direction, we want to talk to you about what pieces are missing. So Taryn's going to speak to the foundation and starting piece, and I'm going to speak to the growing and scaling piece.
So the foundation and starting piece is really about making decisions. And I'll explain a little bit more about that when I get to talking about the actual steps that you take. But in the beginning, it's about making decisions about what to do, what you're doing, what your product is, who your clients are, what strategy you're going to take. And the reason I said that it's decisions and not just strategy is that because there are so many ways to do this out there, you've actually got to pick some. Making a decision and sticking with it is the most useful thing that you can do at this stage of business, because what often happens is because there is confusion and frustration, people don't commit to their decisions. They go, I'm going to try this for a while and see if it works. That's not going to get you the kind of results that you're looking for. To build a foundation, you actually have to make the decisions, and then you have to commit to the decisions long enough to truly test your concept before you make any changes. So the first part is making decisions about some key things and being willing to commit to following through with those things.
Exactly. And then once you've committed, once you've made those decisions, once you've figured out some things that work, this is where you need to get organized. Hopefully you are working at the point where you are, and when we talk about consistency and things like that, we don't necessarily mean getting consults every single week. Even at my stage of my business, I still don't get consults every week. So that's not what it means, but you need to have a more organized approach for how you're going and getting in consults. If that's the way that your business works, a more organized way that you are marketing, instead of just kind of like posting based on inspiration, which is great for that beginning and foundational stage of your business. We want you just to get out there and start posting something. This is where you then need to get a little bit organized. So think about when you are posting and doing different things in your business, think about about how you are taking your time and making sure that you're using that time strategically, making sure that each thing that you're doing in your business is done with a purpose and you're doing it to move forward. So this is going from like kind of throwing the spaghetti at the wall to like, oh, you know what? I noticed that this style of post works. I noticed that whenever I do a webinar or something like this, it is something that really helps to build up my business. I'm going to start doing that more. When I say making things organized and strategic, that's what I mean. It's just noticing the things that you're doing that work, amping up and organizing those things so that it makes it really effective.
So I saw a couple questions asking, how do you build a foundation? And this is how you do it. In order to really create something that has scalability, you have got to know what I call the 3 Ps, and you've got to make decisions about the 3 Ps. The first one, especially for a mission-based business, is you've got to know your purpose. You've really got to be able to understand, why am I doing the work that I do? For a couple of reasons. The first is that if you don't have a strong sense of the purpose of why you're doing this, it's really hard to stick with it when things get tough. And believe me, as you're building a business, there's going to be moments where things get tough. But when you are grounded to a purpose, a reason why you get up and do this, it's a lot easier to get yourself through that. The other reason is because often your purpose is what leads you to the next few steps. If you know what it is you're trying to achieve through your work, it's a lot easier to decide who you do that with and how you do that. So the first thing I always encourage anyone to do is look at why you're doing this business. What is it that motivated you to run this business specifically? So my coaches are a good example, just because I know there's a lot of you on here. If you look at, what is the reason why you're coaching? What is the reason why you decided to do this in the first place? What is the change that you are trying to create in the world through your work? That is your purpose. Like, well, I'll use my own business as an example. My purpose is to participate in the empowerment of women. And I want to be able to do that through entrepreneurship, because I think it's a fantastic way to give women control and power over their finances and their time. That is the reason why I do that. That's my purpose. That then leads me to the next step of my foundation, which is my people. Because unless you know your people, or your audience, or your target market, whatever it is you want to call it, unless you know those people really, really well, you are not going to be able to create products that they want. You know, I don't remember where I read it, but someone was saying, I read a book where they said the most important thing about creating your product is having a market that wants it. And often what we do is we decide the product first, and we're like, okay, well, I'm now going to go find some people to buy this. And it doesn't work that way. You've got to start with your people. You have to start by understanding, what are these people looking for in their lives? So whether you're selling travel, or whether you're selling decorative doilies that go on the back of armchairs, it doesn't actually matter. You need to be able to know the people that you want to serve inside and out. And I mean, seriously, you need to be able to understand how they think, how they feel, what they're doing in their lives, what the problem is that they have that you might be able to solve. And again, this is across industries. It actually doesn't matter if you have a product-based business in person, or whether you're an online coach. This basic business foundation stays the same. You have to know your audience. Because there's no point in me creating something and then discovering that the people that I think I'm going to sell it to actually don't want it. It's not a problem they have. So they're like, okay, well, that's nice, but what do you want from me? I don't want to put myself in a position where I have to convince people of my product. It makes a lot more sense to find the people first, understand them and what they're looking for, how to speak to them, how to build relationships with them, and really understand what is their problem that I can solve, which then leads you to the next piece of your foundation, your product. And a lot of people think the product comes first, but the product actually comes last in the sequence of events. Because once you know your purpose and your people, you can then create a product that those people are willing and able to buy. So when we talk about creating a product, this refers to both physical products and intangibles like coaching or consulting or travel. I keep using travel because Lauren's here. But you're going to want to craft something that is relatable to your people. So as a business coach, I'm not going to create an offer for my people that's like how to have a good relationship with your husband. Because even if they do want a better relationship with their husband, that's not what they came to me for. That's not what they're looking for. And it doesn't fit with what I'm trying to create. But I know that people who are in business, especially women, have got a lot of self-doubt. They've got a lot of confusion. So I'm going to provide them something that solves those specific problems, which I wouldn't understand how to do if I didn't know my people. So those are the 3 stages of creating the initial foundation that the rest of your business builds on. Because if you can understand your people and your product really well, everything else comes from that. So for example, when I start thinking about where am I going to find these people? I know my audience. I know my people. So I know they hang out in places like LinkedIn. I know they go to professional networking events. I know they go to conferences. I know they join Facebook groups of other women talking about what it's like to be a business owner. I know where they are because I understand them. I also know, because I understand them, how to speak to them. I know that they resonate with the experience of being so frustrated when you've tried like the 5th thing in a row and you just can't seem to crack how to make an offer. And you're like, why the hell is nobody buying my stuff? I don't understand. Because I understand my people and I've been there. So every piece of your business from this stage onwards actually rests on these 3 things. And it's so important to spend time on this because we often want to skip this step and jump straight to, well, I'm just going to sell people this and it'll be fine. I'll figure it out. But if you've missed the foundational aspect of really knowing who they are and what you're giving them, what the outcome is you're selling them, you then aren't able to scale because you can't get the messaging consistent. You can't get the offers consistent. You can't get your sales consistent. And once you've got these in place, then you can start building the other things. The other reason why that is the strategy is because that's the piece that doesn't change. We may change our marketing strategies. Like every time the algorithm on Instagram changes or there's a new platform and people are like, oh, look, let's go over here and do this thing. The strategy changes, but the foundation never does. So that's why it's super important. I'll get off my soapbox now and let you have it.
Oh, I totally agree. And that's one of the things that a lot of business owners, that's why their business isn't necessarily working at that time and place. So what we want to do is we want to make sure that those foundations, those 3 Ps are set. Your purpose, your people, and your product are set. Then once you have that, what we want to do is we want to take your business, and when we're thinking about creating a business that works, sometimes what we see is that people have that and then we need to move and then we need to grow from there, and it can get really comfortable to be in that stage, and then we want to move on and think about different strategies that work for your business and organization. And what we chose for this is the 3 C's. So we've got the 3 P's to start, and then we have the 3 C's as you're growing and scaling. So within that, the next stage, once you know your product, your people, and your purpose, you want to create that consistency. At the foundation on starting piece, like I was saying before, a lot of times you'll be marketing from inspiration and you'll be selling in a really like service-oriented way that feels really kind and aligned for you, and you'll be working with clients in a certain way. And at the growing and scaling stage of your business, this is where we want to create some protocols around those pieces. So you want to have something that makes your posting more consistent. The biggest issue I see with so many people that are moving from the starting to scaling stage is that they are posting and it isn't consistent, or their sales, they maybe have like a lower conversion rate than they would like, or they're not necessarily getting consults in even monthly. They also might be working with clients, but then the clients maybe quit and they maybe don't renew, and then maybe are giving testimonials and referrals. And those are the things that you want to really get in place as you're just starting to grow and scale. The next piece is the level of communication. Like Taryn was talking about the relationships with the people that you have. When you're going to a growing and scaling stage of your business, you want to scale those relationships too. You want to have ways that you're consistently building those relationships. You want to bring in what's called leads, and it's just people into your business. You want to make sure that your sales calls are refined so you're really clearly articulating and communicating what you do and having a set sales process. You also want to make sure that you are communicating through your copy. So instead of maybe whereas in the growing and or the starting stage of your business, you might be talking to people one-on-one. What happens in the growing and scaling stage is you're still talking to people one-on-one, but it's about very specific things for your business. And you're also talking to people through your copy, which is just the words that you're writing in your marketing. So you're actually selling people with the words that you write. You're also learning how to convert with webinars. Like I mentioned before, instead of doing a one-on-one sales call with every single client, you are actually going and selling on webinars, which is a really important piece of this. And then the other piece is actually constraint. So at this stage of your business, a lot of people right at this point, this is where everyone's tempted to add things. They're like, ooh, shiny object syndrome. Now that I've gotten the basics down, instead of just doing what works, I'm going to add something new. And I've talked, one of my friends owns a 7-figure business, scaling to multiple 7 figures. And within her business, she was like, you want to know what took me from 500 to 1,200,000? She was like, doing the same thing better and faster.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it really takes for you to scale and grow your business, is you want to make sure that you're doing the same things that work. And instead of doing different things, constrain, focus on working, and amplify that for you and your business. But the main reason, and like what we were thinking is we just wanted to convey that this is really possible for you. And Taryn, like when we were thinking about like when we were doing this webinar, we were like, we see so many entrepreneurs, and one of the purposes for both of us within our business is we want to make entrepreneurship something that is something simple, doable, and more people are able to take on this entrepreneurship journey. We think that by having a business, you really are creating and adding to your purpose in the world. And that's one of the reasons why we wanted to bring this business webinar to you guys this evening, this masterclass, so that you guys are thinking about like building more businesses that worked, creating that powerful contribution, and really helping more people.
And can I add one little thing onto the last slide before we move on?
Of course.
So I think Megan articulated that really well. But there is another reason why I think this is possible and in so many ways necessary. And it's not just because the frustration of building a business means that we lose so many talented people to day jobs because they give up on building their business and getting what it is they create out into the world. But something that I love about business building is that it is, for me, one of the few experiences in this life where we get to truly decide who we are and what we want to do with complete freedom. You know, when you're working for other people, you have to conform to an identity that is required of you depending on the workplace. When you build your own business, it's not only allowed that you get to be who you are, but it's encouraged because it's one of the things that makes your business unique, whatever your product. So making this possible and knowing that this is possible for you allows you to be more of who you are. And personally, I think that is the greatest thing in the world. And if that's all you take away from tonight, then I'm perfectly happy.
Same. Absolutely. And we also wanted to let you know that when you are doing something like being an entrepreneur, it can feel a little bit isolating. Like we mentioned, most people don't decide to do what you guys are all doing and start businesses. It isn't necessarily something that is a mainstream career just yet. So we wanted to let you know that you really don't have to do this alone. When you're thinking about building and scaling your businesses, we want to make sure that you knew how, and we're going to get into Q&A after this. So if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat and stay on. But we wanted to make sure that you knew that you could be supported within this journey. And
Oh, I'm sorry, is it me?
I was like, but I can keep going. I was like, and
Try to remember, hold on, was I supposed to say something here? Yes, absolutely. And another thing that we were talking about recently is that it's so easy to think that there is just a course online that you can take. And yes, there is. The information is always available out there. But especially in the early stages of building a business, there is so much one-on-one time needed where you need to bounce your ideas off someone and you need basically someone to hold your hand and tell you it's going to be okay and you will figure this out. Because without that, it's so easy to get lost in how scary this can be and how difficult it can feel to be in a situation where you don't have the skills yet and you're still learning them and everything feels like it's out of your comfort zone. Having someone like Megan or I, as an example, be available not just to educate you on what it is you need to be doing or what options are available for you to be doing and how to apply that, but having someone that you can go to and go, this sucks. This feels really hard. And I need someone to tell me that it's going to be okay. And as we're both mindset coaches as well, to be able to look at the thoughts that we're having about what we're building, to see the parts where we get stuck, where we get tripped up by our own inner narrative. So I personally believe, and I know people are going to disagree with me on this, but I personally believe that having someone one-on-one in the early stages of your business is the way to go. And I'm going to say this because there's coaches on here, but I don't think that group coaching in the space of early business development is useful. I think it can often be detrimental and people get lost. And I get so sad at thinking how many amazing coaches and business owners never get to see their potential because they get lost in that early stage. So we are all about education, application, and support. And that's what we both want to see more of in the business development space, because we really do need those three things together to be able to really make a difference in people's businesses and in their lives so that they can get to that space where their business is actually sustainable.
Yes, exactly. And like the thing that I like to think about is it's like reading a book and taking a course about how to ride a bike versus being with someone who is actually holding the handlebar and walking the bike alongside with you, who has ridden a bike before and is at that similar stage in your business. That's the kind of thing that we wanted to create. So for me, I wanted to create a program that felt like that handheld experience for people who are scaling to their first six figures. Last year was actually my first year of business full time, and I hit six figures in that first year. And within that, I realized that there were things that I was doing that really made my business work. And they were simple. It was things that, like, for me, I actually work like 25 hours a week, which is awesome. And that's the way I like to kind of run my business. And within that, I knew that these were systems that could help other people as well when they were thinking about, okay, I'm really serious. This is something that I want to make my career and I'm ready to grow and scale. And so what I did is I created a program called Six Figure Systems. And if that is something that seems like a good fit for your business, within that program, I'm going to teach you how I market. And within creating an elevated social media presence, this is a system that I teach my clients, and it takes them 6 hours a month instead of like what I did at the beginning of my business, which was like 6 hours a day to write a post. So I want to really simplify things, make it a lot easier. Along with selling, that was something that I learned how to create a really like tailored sales process. So within my conversion rate, it actually doubled in that year as well. Didn't necessarily get more clients, more consults, but I was able to close the people that joined and really articulate how I was able to help them. So that is something that I teach all of my clients. I also think that something that Taryn and I feel extremely strongly about is building relationships. We are building service-based businesses to help people. And when you're trying to help people, I want to teach you how to build relationships on a large scale. So that's what I do with my managing leads. It teaches you how to talk to more people and also create a little bit more of that consistent revenue. Now, entrepreneurship is not a typical job. So there isn't necessarily a consistent stream of revenue every single month. You're not necessarily getting a set paycheck. However, it does feel a lot more safe and sustainable than getting a sale every once in a while. The other thing is within the delivery process, I have a really rote way that people actually track and see intangible growth that I teach my clients how to do as well, because you need to be having at that stage of your business those referrals, those testimonials, and those renewals. Those are the backbone of your business. And so you want to make sure that you are really over delivering and really serving your people so that you can have a solid foundation for where your business is going. And then this is what Taryn and we were talking about. Like, I love doing webinars and presentations. As a former teacher, this is one of my favorite things to do, is teach other people how to present. It's a really great way for you to think about nailing your positioning down and making sure that you are standing out in a crowd. Because I think that a lot of you guys on this call, you might be coaches, which is awesome. And we want to have you standing out as coaches. Every single one of you guys is different and unique. And even if you learn the same tool, you need to stand out in the audience, and you want to make sure that your audience knows you and how you use your tools. And I think presentations are a great way to do that. And then last but not least, I teach you how to plan. So we are talking about time management as a piece of both of our businesses. But when you're planning at this level, this is where you want to, again, your time is lessened, you have less time. So I want to make sure that you are knowing exactly how to spend every hour, every minute of your day becomes a lot, very, very precious. And there isn't much time for you to think about what kind of things you're doing. I want to make sure that's streamlined, that's quick, that's effective. Not only that, you know how to use your finances. That's something that I found was missing from a lot of different programs that I found, even at this stage, the growing and scaling stage, which is totally fine. But that was something that cost me $26,000 at the beginning of this year, and something I want everyone to know how to do their business finances. I want to make sure that you are not making the same mistakes that I did, just so that you feel safe in the present of your business and you are flowing into the future of your business. And so if you guys are looking to work with me, we'll put up this consult QR code again. That'll be at the very end of it, but it's in the same format that Taryn has as well. It's just through Acuity. So if you follow me on social media, you can go ahead, and it's also in my link tree on there. But you just choose a time, and we'll take an hour to do a 6-month blueprint and plan for your business. I'm sorry, I know we're going long, but thank you guys so much for staying on. We will, if anyone needs to go, we will still give we'll give the replay to anybody. I saw a couple of people say things in here, and that is also totally fine.
Am I going to get to do my one?
Oh, of course. Oh, yeah.
Like, these are out of order. Where'd mine go?
I was like,
that's
saw a couple people message, and I was like, no, I was like, so we will send it, because, and I'll send your information with everyone with who's getting the replay on my list as well.
Before I sort of talk a little bit about my piece, I wanted to just illustrate something that Megan said that I think is really worth taking note of. When we talk about not copying other businesses, we don't just mean copying the bigger businesses, but also businesses at the same level. Megan and I are at the same level of business in terms of size and revenue. And what's so fascinating is that this is the first webinar I have ever done. I've never done a webinar. This is completely new to me. So in terms of our strategies, it's completely different. On my piece where I talk about what I do, she made me give it a name. She made me name my program, people, because I don't have a name. I didn't have the same strategy, but we've managed to get to the same place in our businesses. And where she was saying that, the presenting part is about bringing your uniqueness into your business. That's what we're talking about. Really getting to be clear on what works for you and leveraging that to get your business to where it needs to be. So I just really wanted to highlight that, because I thought that was such a great illustration of two businesses being at the same revenue and size level, but having done it in very different ways. And, to further illustrate that, Megan, you went full-time last year?
Yeah.
I've been a coach for 13 years. I have been doing this on and off for 13 years because I didn't have my foundation in place. So we've arrived at the same place through completely different journeys. It really is about what you are willing to do and the pieces that you're willing to put in place, which is why I have, thanks to Megan, the Beginner Business Blueprint. Fancy, right? I like it. And that, to reiterate what I'd spoke about before, that is really about knowing your purpose, knowing your audience, and knowing your messaging and your product. If you're able to build those things, everything else you can figure out and experiment with until you find the right combination of things that work. And that includes your marketing and being able to sell your product consistently or sell your offers consistently. But those are the foundation. And then there's the piece that I didn't talk too much about because we would be here forever if I did. And that is the mindset aspect. Mindset is always important, always. But at the beginning of your business, when you are not accustomed to being out of your comfort zone, when you are not accustomed to not having a regular paycheck, when you're not accustomed to doing something and not getting a predictable result like we do when we're in a job, you do this thing and you get this result and then your boss is happy. It's great. When you're building a business, it doesn't work that way. So the mindset that we have to build is one of resilience and flexibility so that we can deal with the fears, the doubt, the failures that come up in those early stages of business. Those are the things that will get in your way, even if you have the foundational piece in place. So the combination of the mindset and the strategy of your foundation has to go hand in hand. Otherwise, you are going to really struggle in those early stages when you are still figuring out, what am I supposed to be doing? And you're still waiting for the results of what you've created. And that's really what I focus on with my work, is building that foundation and then helping people to develop the mindset that lets them stick with it until it gets the results to the point that they can then start to scale their business. Okay.
That in
And
like, I feel
sorry.
like anyone who works with Taryn, you guys have seen in the chat, if you are at that beginning stage of your business, like this is huge. What the things that you were talking about. And I just can't
Thank you.
speak to it any more highly.
I'm very passionate about this, as I'm sure you guys can tell, and as many of you here know, because I can see some of my current and past clients going, "Yay!" So I actually have two QR codes, because the one is to schedule a session with me and just talk about like what is going on with your business and figure out like what are your next steps, and then see if maybe I'm the coach that can help you with that. And the other one is to my Change One Woman group on Facebook that I've just opened, because what I really want to do is develop this community where we have these like-minded women all on the same kind of journey, coming together and sharing their knowledge, their wisdom, their experience, and demystifying a lot of this business building thing, because we make it seem so mysterious. And we need to be able to get together and have these kinds of conversations to normalize a lot of it. And I'm seeing people saying my QR code isn't working. I will probably email you out the links then, I guess, or pop them in the chat.
Yeah.
Can I do that?
Of course. Yeah.
Or
And
it wasn't may I, it's can I?
it's
Let me
like,
figure that out.
let me know if, and what we'll do also, like I mentioned before, is we'll send out all these links to everybody as well. So you're going
That
to
would
get
be
the
awesome.
PowerPoint, you'll get the replay, and you'll get the QR codes as well.
Yes, thank you, because for some reason my QR codes, which I was very proud of, are now not working. No idea why. See, make mistakes even at this level of business. It happens.
Oh yeah. And here's, check and see if these QR codes work as well.
Well,
But
it worked earlier.
feel and
Bizarre.
just check out our information. We're just so thankful for you guys coming. And we wanted to do a quick coaching giveaway. So this is, I feel like pulling the teacher for me, going in there. And again, we're going to send out all of this information and we're going to come back to this page for the Q&A. However, we did promise that we were going to give away 2 coaching sessions. So
Yay.
based on who signed up, we have Luis is, I think, or Sandra. Awesome, Sandra. So you want a coaching session, and either one of us will be reaching out to you. Whoever signed up, I think Sandra might have been on your list. So either way, you get a coaching session. And Luis, wow, that was funny. So we'll be reaching out to you guys. And we are so thankful for you spending your Monday night with us. and we wanted to open it up for a little bit of Q&A.
To everyone mentioning my QR code, yeah, I appear to have done something. I will send out the links. My apologies. Technology.
And I'm going to repost it in the group as well, the Facebook one as well. That should go to everybody. Awesome. Does anyone have any questions? Yeah.
Nancy.
Hi. Megan, we live in the same state. I just went through your city this morning,
So
or
fun.
coming home tonight. I'm on the coast. So this may be a tacky question, but transparency is important to me. When I go to a consult, I like to have some sort of idea because I don't want to waste everybody's time. So what do you do with people like me who say, I really kind of want to know more information about pricing?
I was like, Taryn, you want to take it or do you want me to?
Oh, yeah, I'm more than happy to take that.
Thanks.
There are a number of schools of thought on this, and I'll tell you my opinion and then I'll tell you why. I am all for being transparent with pricing because I don't like people to think that they're ever going to be in a situation in a consult with me where I'm going to hard sell them into anything. I don't like it. I won't do it. And, my reasons are my own. It's not a judgment on anyone who does use hard selling tactics. The reason I generally won't post my prices is because money objections are very seldom about money. What I've learned over 13 years is that if someone has a belief that even with help, they won't be able to achieve their goal, or they don't deserve the success, or they're not sure that it'll work for them, if there's ever any kind of inner doubt that brings them to a place of disbelief in their potential, the price is going to be the thing that they use to avoid acknowledging that. So for me, putting the price ahead of time means that I miss out on the opportunity to show someone in a consultation what is in their way. It's not about, for me anyway, it's not about not telling people my prices. It's that I treat my consultations as an opportunity to get them help, even if they don't work with me. And I know there's a few people who have been on consultations with me. And what I do is that we sit down and we look at what is going on with your business and what do you want to achieve. And I will help you identify the top like 3 or 4 things that really need to shift and what I can see is the problem. And I will give you that. As most people who've worked with me will know, I actually will send you an email afterwards detailing the things that we discussed, what the problem is, and what I think your next step should be. But that's never contingent on whether or not you work with me. For me, that is an opportunity for you to know what your next steps are, whether you're a good fit to work with me or not. So that is the reason why I am not forthcoming on the outside with my prices. But I do believe that there needs to be a balance between that transparency and not wanting to share the prices initially. I hope that answers the question and doesn't seem too like roundabout.
Yeah. And for me, one of the things that I like, again, different stage of business, there's a lot of different things about the mindset that need to be overcome at that stage of business. So that's why I think it's really important for that. And also, Nancy, if you're thinking about like listing your prices and things like that, it might be because of like, oh, I don't necessarily want to deal with the money objection. I want people knowing coming into it. And that's also great. I'm like, that's totally fine. Totally a different perspective. For me, at the growing and scaling stage of my business, usually I'm not the first person that people have invested in, and they're typically trying to figure out their finances and figure out their expenses. So that's one of the reasons why I have listed my prices in the past, and I've done it both ways. So it's like currently for my one-on-one, it's 7,500, and then for my group, it's 5K. But within that, like the prices are always subject to change, and my audience knows me and they understand kind of like where they're already at that stage in their business. And so that's the reason why a lot of times I list my prices. It might be something that they're like looking to plan for. They might need to take out a loan change up the way that they're doing their credit for some way, shape, or form. And the way that I like to talk to my clients about my pricing is I like to think about, okay, for me, I also have for quite some time a money back guarantee. So the way I like to think about it is I was like, I'm kind of investing in you as well. And so when I look at people who would be good prospects for my business, it sounds weird, like prospects. I'm like, people who would be a good fit for my business. I'm like, okay, based on these systems, how many one-on-one clients or how many clients in general would you need to sign? For some of my clients, they have pricing that's like, it would be like, okay, that would take 6 clients for you. I'm like, oh, okay, my systems will for sure get you 6 clients. For some clients who are selling products, it's like $20 for their product. I'm like, okay, let me think about if you could make your money back based on those graphics. But those are some things that I like to take into consideration as well. But that, again, different stage of business, so different philosophy. And so just knowing that that's the reason why, I hope that helps. I think sometimes, yeah.
I also just want to add that because my business is based on personal relationships and I like to really get to know individual people rather than the group. If someone came to me and said that they were uncomfortable with having a consultation with me unless they knew my price because they want to be able to prepare ahead of time, I have no objection to telling them what it is. It's just not something that I'm going to list on my website openly. Great question, though.
Such a good question. And I saw in here, I know I'm in my way.
Aren't we all?
I get that. That's what you just see, like there are different frames of ways that you can frame your pricing, and both of them we're in the same spot, guys, in our business. It doesn't have to be the same philosophy for everything.
Christina asked a question by direct message. Christina, I hope you don't mind if I address it to the group. So she asked, am I able to work with self-coaching scholars? And the answer is no. I have a non-compete with the Life Coach School. So if you are a member of Self-Coaching Scholars, that does preclude you from working with me. And that is something that I will not violate because it's just, I signed the agreement, made the thing. But I am always open to helping people, even if I'm not being paid. And which goes to another question someone asked about the Facebook group. The Facebook group is open to anyone who is a woman in business, because this is bigger than just my business. This is about creating a community of like-minded women who are building businesses together and using each other as support systems. So, whether or not you're able to work with me directly, doesn't matter. If I can help, I will.
So Taryn, how long is well, I guess both of you, because maybe there's someone else that wants to know too, but how long are your programs? Like how much support? I mean, how long are they?
Do you want to go first, Megan?
Yeah, sure. So I do 6 months for one-on-one and mastermind, and I have virtual coaching that I do with both of them. So one of them is within a Stream and a Google Classroom. The other one has Slack support.
So my basic program is 3 months, so 12 weeks. And in between there, you also have email access to me, even down to like nitty-gritty things. Like I have people sending me copy from their websites to analyze and go through. I have people sending me the offers that they're creating and we'll workshop them. And this is in between sessions via email. So I have a lot of ongoing support in between because like I said, there is that hand-holding element that you kind of really need at the beginning of a business. Once I've worked with someone for that initial 3 months and I'm comfortable that their foundation is on its way to being stable, I then offer the opportunity to have an ongoing relationship. It's a monthly subscription where you have access to sessions whenever you need them, but you're no longer in like a block of 12 weeks. You can cancel whenever you want.
Thank you both. Appreciate it.
Any other questions? No, everyone's so quiet. I know some of you and I know you're loud.
I have a question.
Yes.
So I know, Megan, you mentioned, I think you work 25 hours a week. Is that what you said? And Taryn, what about you? Like, what's your I know you work for self-coaching scholars too, so.
Yeah, but that doesn't actually make up many of my hours, and I do that because I love it. Quite frankly, it's amazing. But I currently have a roster of about 27 clients, but not all of them I see weekly. So on an average week, I'm probably face to face with people for about 25, 26 hours, and then I do email support in between. And some of my clients are actually still corporate clients where I actually go in to their businesses and diagnose issues with their team and their processes and their foundations, because often process problems mean their foundation wasn't built properly. So I've got a bit of an interesting business model where I work with a range of different types of clients. One-on-one currently, trying to remember. Just one-on-one is probably about 25 hours a week at the moment. And then I do around 5 to 10, depending on what's going on in that week, of development, admin, reach outs. Like this last week, I worked the entire week because I was at a conference where I was presenting. So it really does depend. My business is very flexible, and I tend to just do the stuff that excites me. Anything else?
I don't have a question, but when I saw your message about what it's like to start a new business, like, oh my gosh, like literally this morning I was crying out to my husband saying, like, I need somebody to hold my hand. This is so hard. So this was really nice to hear. It's like it's normal, and it's really nice to read it somewhere else. Like it's like I'm not alone, and like I am alone, but it's like it's not.
But you're really not. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm.
I remember when I first kind of got going with my business, when I was like, okay, I'm actually seriously going to do this now. I remember setting up a desk in the dining room of our house, and it overlooked the windows, and it felt terribly important. And I had my laptop and a little paper diary, and I made myself some business cards, and I had a website and a blog, and it felt terribly organized. And I remember it being devastating when I felt like I had all these things in place and nothing was working. I couldn't get clients. I couldn't get people to let me speak at things. I would go to networking events and stumble over my words and just not know how to explain to people what it is I was trying to do and how I wanted to help them. And there were many, many sleepless nights where I cried, and I'm like, what am I even doing here? I'm wasting my time and my money. And it was, when I say it was devastating, I'm not kidding. I felt so broken down in some of those times where nothing I did seemed to make a difference. And it sucked. And there was no one to talk to because I was afraid to tell other business owners how I felt, because then they would know I had failed. And it was really hard. The self-imposed isolation of not being able to normalize how hard it can be in those first years of business, that was really tough, because everyone was like, just fake it till you make it. Well, I find that being honest and having community that will accept you and support you no matter where you're at makes the biggest difference. So thank you for sharing that. I appreciate you.
Yeah.
You're being honest about what it's like.
Well, and I think one of the reasons why we wanted to do this webinar is we saw so many people where we were. When I first started, like I said, I was a teacher. So I did not have a ton of money to be investing in certification, put my entire life savings in, had to take out loans. I not like really had experience in things like that. And I remember when I first started my business, I got consults when I, that first post when people are like, oh, this seems cool. And they start liking it and they're like, oh, this is great. Got a couple consults, had a couple clients. I posted every day, 7 days a week for 7 months. After that, 0 clients, 0 consults, nothing. People weren't liking anything that I had, crickets. And I just remember I had decided to leave my job in December of 2020. And I was terrified. I was like, how am I going to make this work? I know that I'm decent at what I do, but this isn't working. And I think that Taryn and I both have decided to go on this journey of helping people because we don't want people to be where we were. We do not
Absolutely.
sit in 7 months of purgatory, it felt like, with seeing no growth. There is, if you are not seeing growth, it's normal. And we want to make sure that it is like you do not feel alone. Everybody goes through that, but also make sure that you tell somebody, get some support. Do not just sit in that period. I wish that I had, and again, it was the same kind of thing. I was like, if I tell people I'm struggling, then I am,
And they'll know that I suck and I don't know what I'm doing.
and they won't work with me, and like all these like thoughts. And it was just like, it was a rough go at the beginning, and that happens for all of us. Like, I don't know many people who don't have that kind of a struggle.
Yeah.
However, get support as soon as you can, and you're not alone. Those are the two things.
That is so helpful to hear. Thank you. And it's so it's exactly the same. It's like the initial post, like, oh, so many, and then clients, and I'm starting groups, and and then suddenly, like, my offers, like, nobody even sees them. It's like, what? Facebook doesn't like me. It's like, oh, I just want to crawl back in the cave, like those kind of things.
Yeah. And I will just mention something about staying with the Life Coach School. And this is one of the reasons why I do love coaching and self-coaching scholars, because I get to see literally hundreds of people going through the same thing. Hundreds. So, you know, when it's one or two of my own clients experiencing it, or even all of my own clients, it feels like it's just an isolated thing within my niche. Every single business owner, whether it's a coach, whether it's a product-based business, every single business owner I've worked with over the last 13 years has gone through this stage. It is more normal than not. This idea that we can just like snap our fingers and everything works magically, that is often sold in the online space, because of course someone's going to tell you that. They want you to buy their stuff. But that idea has done so much damage because we haven't normalized the process of product development and the trial and error of business development. And we have to be able to normalize it and accept that this is a part of the thing so that we can be prepared for it. You know, when we don't normalize that and prepare people, we have people prematurely jumping in, quitting their job, getting rid of every piece of security, and they're not ready for that. And then they crash and burn, which is horrible to see. Or you have people who do what I did, who built their businesses on the side, always afraid to take that very next step. And, you know, when I finally made the decision, I was working full-time as an executive director of an entire organization with a bunch of staff and like a lot of responsibility, and then doing almost 30 hours a week in my coaching business. When I say I was burned out, that doesn't even come close to describing the experience. You know, if burned out is a normal thing, then I was like a crispy duck that had been burned several times in the oven for an hour and a half each. It was indescribable what I was putting myself through, because no one had told me that it's normal. It's normal to have that fear of like jumping to the next step. It's normal to go through the process of development and need to hold off on jumping all in. There are so many nuances to doing this that we don't normalize, that we need to be talking more about.
And literally, if you guys enjoyed tonight, Taryn and I have been discussing at length the need for some sort of education around being an entrepreneur. We are, and that's just, so just keep it on. We've been just thinking about, there's a need for this. We know that there is a need in our society and in our groups, because we do see all these such passionate entrepreneurs that are going out there and they're trying to make a difference in the world. And it's not that you aren't amazing at what you do. It's just that you don't know how to be an entrepreneur. There's no training that's formalized for that, for all of the aspects of entrepreneurship. We see a lot of trainings for marketing, and a training for sales, and a training for certifications to know how to deliver to your clients.
Which are all amazing if you have a foundation.
Exactly. Until you have, we need more programs that are bringing it all together. And that's one of the things that we've realized is a need. And another reason why we wanted to do this like presentation masterclass tonight, because we know that there are a lot of you guys that are experiencing this. Yes. I didn't realize it was 9:30. This is awesome.
Bye, Harmony. Well, if there are no more questions, before Megan makes closing remarks, I just want to say thank you so much for spending this time with us and letting us talk to you about something that we're so very, very passionate about, and that we really want to see shift in the business space and with female entrepreneurs. And I'm thrilled that you're all in the space where you are also doing this work and going out there and making whatever your business is successful so that you can get your stuff out into the world and make the difference.
Exactly. And one of the things that I think we both share, again, the reason why we decided to do this webinar as a collaborative effort to get webinar masterclass. I will get it right by the end of it.
It's the thing.
The reason why we decided to do this masterclass is we feel so passionate about, like, I think that we have seen such a shift in the world in these past 5 years. Oh my goodness. So much has shifted in the world. And many of you are mental health professionals, and there are also people who are solopreneurs that are really in other service-based industries. And I think there's never been a more important time for our industries. And also thinking about our lives and how short and precious our time on this planet is. I'm really proud of you guys for going out there and deciding to do something that is different, going against the grain, doing something that is unique, and really fulfilling your purpose through these passion projects. I know that it's hard. We know that you guys are going through struggles, and it's worth it. Keep going.
Absolutely.
Do not stop, especially now more than ever. There has never been a more important time for our businesses to shine. And so thank you guys so much for taking this evening. Thank you so much for spending your time with us. We know it's the most important resource that you have. It's the only time you can't get back, So we're really, really grateful for you. And if you have any questions at all, please, we're going to talk after this and make sure we get both of our
All
information
the things.
out to everybody, so you guys have the recording and you've got the presentation and all that good stuff. But thank you guys just for coming.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.